Hi everyone, today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Sarah Teskova. She's the Sales and Clients Operation Director at Sharry. She's based in New York and she's a member of Women in Tech. So thank you so much for your time and for joining us today, Sarah.
Hi, Pamela. Thank you so much for having me, and shout out to Women in Tech who made this meeting possible. Yeah, a little bit about me. You already started talking about, my role. I'm the head of client operations and sales for Sharry, a European company that provides enterprise clients with office-centric workplace experience platforms that work to really transform the workplace dynamic by providing features like the Apple Wallet to get into office spaces and office buildings. They also provide hybrid work facilitation, visitor management, and employee engagement. And you've already talked about this a little bit, but Sharry is a global company. So we have clients across Europe, the US, as well as Latin America.
Thank you, Sarah. So today I would like to ask you a bit about being a woman in tech. So from your perspective and your own experience, what would you say about the gender gap in this industry?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a big one. Definitely a gender gap in the industry, of course, and there's no there's no secret about that, of course. But I can definitely speak to some specifics that I've seen through my journey. One of the biggest ones, I think, is really thinking about leadership of tech startups in general and thinking about really the C suite and the people who are in the boardroom and make the main decisions within these organizations. In my experience, I haven't really experienced a lot of diversity within the C suite. And this is something that you'll probably hear a lot, with peers, within the tech industry, specifically with startups. They didn't have any women within their C suite. Of course, as you go down the hierarchy, you see more and more women coming up. But I definitely think that the biggest gap is within the leadership team and within the boardroom. Now, something else that I can say about that gender gap is it really depends on the sort of department and division that you're looking at. So
Yeah, totally. That's my case as well, and you can see it's more in the tech industry, I would say. So I agree with you on that. But luckily, there are more each time more movements from different companies doing something about this issue, right? So Sarah, as a woman with vast experience in the tech industry, from the gender gap perspective, how do you see this evolving in the next couple of years in the tech industry?
if you're looking at specific departments, you're going to see more representation within specific ones, like, for example, in my experience, marketing or even finance, PR, HR. Those are departments that have more women within them. And then you have different departments like sales, or even engineering, things that are, just way more male dominated and continue to be that way. Yeah, I think that's another great question that you raise. I think that we've made very, very big progress in the recent years, and we've seen this with a lot more female founders and a lot of more women within the tech space and more women raising money for their ventures within the tech industry. So I think that's we're definitely seeing a positive shift. I will say that from a perspective of working for tech startups in general, I think that's something that we often see as barriers and as challenges, is that we don't see, and it goes back to my previous point, we don't see as much leadership or female leadership within our organizations, which makes us be less confident in the fact that we can get to a leadership position within that company. Now, whatever company you're working for, you're working with, I think it really comes from the top management level, where people really need to think about, okay, what is it that we can do as an organization, as a department, as a community, to be able to attract more women to even in the first place apply for certain positions, right? And so what can we do as an organization to make these opportunities more visible, make these opportunities more open and attractive for women to even have the right applicants, to be applying for these jobs and then have a higher chance of, even giving these opportunities to women. So I think that that is definitely a barrier. And as we are, in that transitional state where we're getting more and more women in leadership, I think more women will follow because they will see that representation. What's a huge barrier for a lot of women, especially at the start of their, careers and their journeys, is really having the confidence, right? Having the confidence to go out of their comfort zone, apply for certain positions, network with certain people, really take that initiative and get out of their comfort zone. All that we can do, in as people who are in positions of power or positions of, influencing the decision makers, let's say, is, to create those opportunities and create opportunities where women are feeling empowered to do these things, right? So I would say that's a little bit on the barriers and challenges, but there's definitely much more. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Actually, I know that there are many companies that have mentorship programs or like women in leadership programs that help motivate or foster that confidence in women that you just mentioned. So what would be like your piece of advice for women that want to connect with other women in tech or to build a successful career in tech, maybe joining some communities like Women in Tech as we are? What would be your piece of advice?
yeah, I think it starts really early on. And I think, you can definitely take a lot of initiative just in your, starting with your college years. I think that leads very directly towards, looking for networking and mentorship opportunities within your community. So regardless of where you live or where you work, there's always going to be, a direct community that you will probably be able to find within, city or metro area that you're in. And that really, looks differently for different people, right? It's going to look different for someone who lives in New York versus, someone who lives in the South or someone who lives in Europe. So definitely going out of your way to connect with your direct communities that you already have a relationship with and can really go up to people and say, look, I'm interested in XYZ. Like, are you able to connect me with someone or someone in your community? Um, Being a bit more specific, I think that definitely being a part of an organization like Women in Tech is great because it's a global community. You can really connect with global women in tech virtually. So you're not limited by the fact that you're, based in a particular area and it's just much easier. You're able to also do one-on-one sessions with people. So I think those are very, very, useful things to do. Of course, in terms of mentorship, which is something that I like to talk about because I love the mentors that I've had on my journey and still keep a close contact with all of them. Even though women tend to be a little overly mentored, I still think that mentorship is something that's really important. And the question is, how do you find these mentors? Where do you find these mentors? Well, they can be, again, in your community, but they can also be people you meet through organizations like Women in Tech. Yeah, I think it's of course a long conversation about what sort of different networks people can join, but I think it really depends on what you're trying to get out of it and also what your role is, right, within an organization and where you're trying to go.
Yeah, totally. And but you always learn something and you get inspired by other women, and I think that's great. Um, Thank you so much, Sarah, for all your insights and thoughts and for your time. Of course, it's so nice to be connected with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for the invitation.